Hello everyone and happy Saturday. I hope everyone is enjoying my new schedule. It is working really well for me, and that's the most important thing. And when I feel stressed to get videos up, that doesn't make it more difficult for me to create and get stuff up in a timely manner. So I'm hoping this is going to work as well for you as it is me. Today we're going to be working with these products that I have on my desktop, and the star of the show is going to be this piece to you, and I'm going to actually use the image. The stamp set doesn't have a lot of images, but they're powerful images, and I love the fact that you can coordinate whatever color ink with your cardstock, and you'll see that today. So we're going to use the church and the little trees, and I'm going to show you how this works. We are going to use our Stamparatus for this, and I'm going to go over the products first. We're going to be using the Piece to You stamp set, the Merriest Frames dies and hybrid folder, and anytime it's a hybrid, let me explain what that means. That means that your dies fit inside of your embossing folder, so you can actually die cut and emboss at the same time. But I'm going to do it separate, and I'll explain why when we get there. But we're going to be using that along with two dies out of this. We're going to use the detailed frame, which is this one, and we're going to use the little rectangle that goes right in the middle. So those are going to be the dies that we use. I'm just going to lay this all out. We're going to use for our sentiment inside our card, Hope and Peace, and I'm not sure which one of these I'm going to use yet. My sample, I use this one, and I'll show you that in just a moment. We're going to use this label die out of the Golden Beauty, and this goes with the Brightest Beauty bundle, so it's the stamp and the dies, but I'm only going to use this little frame. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that out as well, and we'll lay this over here. So I think I've gone over all of the stamps and dies that we're going to use. So let me show you the paper that you're going to need. I chose the Rich Razzleberry for my card base, and this is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, a typical A2 size card. I have a piece of the brushed metallic in the gold, and you can see this has lines in it. It doesn't matter which way you cut it, but this piece is actually 5.5 by 4.5, and I'll tell you why I cut it so big in just a minute. For the inside of our card, I have a piece of white, and our piece for our card, this is actually cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So you're going to need that piece, and then a piece of scrap white. I got my Stamparatus out because we're going to be using it, and you know what, we're going to need another piece of white. Haha, I'm going to need a bigger piece of white than that. So let me grab a larger piece of white that we can do everything on. So that's just the scrap that I pulled out of my scrap bin. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Let's do our stamping first. So I'm going to take this piece, and I'm just going to sit it in here. Doesn't matter where you put it, because we got these really strong magnets that we're going to put. Tell you what, let's put it up here, and I'm just going to pull this piece in. I want to get it right on the edge so that if it does move, I can position it back where I want it to go. We could go all the way into the corner. Why don't we do it this way? Let's do it like this. Put our magnet there, and we'll stamp here. That way if it moves, I can just put it back into that corner. And all I want to do is I want to stamp this right there. So I'm just going to pick that up. Let's move that other cardstock out. I'm going to move this over to this side. I'm going to use a stamp set underneath it to give me the stability. And the stamp cases, I don't know if Stampin' Up! Meant this to work this way, but they are perfect size to put up underneath the door of your Stamparatus. I am going to stamp with the Rich Razzleberry ink, since I'm using the Rich Razzleberry. And look at the coordination. Again, this is Stampin' Up! Your inks, your markers, your Stampin' Rights, your Stampin' Blends, and all of your ink pads, along with Designer Series paper, will match your cardstock. You never have to run around and look for what's going to match. So I'm just going to ink this up, and I'm going to be very generous. But remember, we're using the Stamparatus, so if we don't get good coverage, we can stamp again without the fear of this not being in the right place. Now I'm going to grab I have a little tool. This is not a Stampin' Up! Product, but I love having this because it just gives me good leverage to really press down my my stamp onto my paper. So let's see what we got. Not bad, but not where I want it. I definitely want it a lot darker than that. Maybe I should have re-inked this. And if I have to, I can stop and go off camera and re-ink this pad. I haven't inked this pad since I've had it. Well, let's see what we get on the second inking. Give it a good workout. I like going in circles because I feel like that puts even pressure all over that stamp. Let's see what we got. That's a little better, but still not quite there. So I'm making sure that didn't move. Let's go one more time. I want to show you my sample. Let me go ahead and show you my sample. There is my sample that I did, and I did this in Night of Navy, and you can see what I'm doing with that brushed metallic gold and my little label that I showed you we're going to use, and this is my inside. I thought this turned out very, very pretty, but I wanted to try it with all of you, and using a different color. And I thought, all right, I re-inked using my re-inker. I re-inked my ink pad, and I am very pleased with what has the results from this. So as you can see, you really need to give this a good press. I didn't use this, I used my hand, and I think I got a really good image with that. So I'm going to set this over here and let it dry. And I like to do this with my images when they're on my Stamparatus like this. I like to take our Stampin' Mist, it's our stamp cleaner, and I like to lay the cloth over to the side. These are just microfiber towels. You can pick those up most anywhere. I think even at the Dollar Tree. Sometimes you can get bundles of them there. Amazon. My husband actually has these out in the garage, so I actually confiscated some out of his pack. So I have some in here for that reason. But anyway, you can just clean your stamp up right there on your Stamparatus, and how cool is that? I got ink on my desk, but you know what? That's okay. This is a nice water-based ink. It usually cleans off very well. I'm going to take just a tiny squirt of my cleaner, and I'm going to go right here, and it comes right off. Not so much on paper, but it will come off of products and your hands. Usually an alcohol wipe will take it right off my hands. No problem whatsoever. Okay. Now that we got that done, I don't think I'm going to need my Stamparatus anymore because the other stamping we can do with just a stamp block. So I'm going to move that back over here, and let's go ahead and put our stamp back into our case. And I'm going to bring over my piece of brushed metallic gold, and I'm going to put this down on here. And I did cut this piece just a tiny bit bigger than I did that piece, and that's why. Oh my word. So I'm going to have to cut another piece of rich razzleberry. No big deal. We got this, right? You know, it would not be one of my videos if I didn't have a boo-boo on it. So, are y'all with me? I mean, you know, I'm getting that rich razzleberry off of my cut plate. I don't want it to stick or cause my other piece to not work like it ought to. So we're going to lay this on here. We got the right piece now, and then I'm going to lay this over top, and we're going to run this through. Now this one I am going to back it back through, because anytime you're working with the metallics, sometimes they don't cut quite as easily as your cardstock. All right, we're going to set that down there. We will need it again, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to lay this over, and we are going to pull this up. And what we want is we want this outside edge to come loose. And if you hold this down with your finger as you work it loose, you can see anytime it's the metallic, it is a little bit stiffer paper to work with, but it will come loose, and then you're left with this. Now you're going to need to weed this a little bit, and if you have a Cricut you know what weeding is. Weeding is just taking out your negative area that you don't need. So I like to use my Take Your Pick for this because it helps all of my pieces to fall out just like that. Those little pieces that we don't need. Look at that, I got rich raspberry on my fingers. That's okay, it's all right. You know, we're gonna work this, and I'm gonna get all of these pieces off of here, and then we're gonna run this back through our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine in the embossing folder, and then we're gonna get a lot of texture and a lot of dimension on this card, because it's gonna actually emboss all of the leaves and stuff. Now, yeah, we could have run it through with the die, but I don't get as good of effect. I get a much better effect if I do this separately. I've tried it both ways, and I like it better. So, I mean, if you have this die set, you know, by all means, try it and see which way you like best. It is easy to do it because you only have one pass, but I don't think it's as pretty. So, for all those reasons, I prefer to go this route. I was thinking I had another piece I had cut that shows that, but I don't know what I did with it. Anyway, let's just go ahead and go with this, and I'm going to get all these little pieces out. You know, you want to be careful because this can be delicate, and you don't want to break any of your pieces. So, like right there, that piece wanted to bend, but it's okay, we got it. So see all of the little debris of gold that came out of that? Nothing stuck to our die, it was just stuck inside of our piece. So I'm just going to rake that off of my desk and get it in the trash. Now let's get our embossing folder. I'm going to bring my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine back. This time we're only going to need our base plate and our number 4 specialty plate, and this is specially made for your 3D embossing folders. And let me show you what we're going to do. This is your Merriest Frames hybrid embossing folder. So what I want to do is I want to lay this in, making sure that I'm getting it just in those spots where it's supposed to go. So you can see the outline of where it goes. So just line everything up like so. I like to hold mine up to the window, and that way I can really see if I've got it exactly where it goes. Once I do, I hold my finger there and then grab a hold of it here. Then lay it down onto your platform. Lay your other plate over top of it and go ahead and crank it through. And I'll crank it back. And then pull that plate up, and I want you to see the difference. Look at that detail now. Is that not gorgeous? So this piece is ready now to go on our card. So I'm going to bring my trimmer up, and I'm just going to cut this like I'm going to make a A2 size card base. I'm going to take my 11-inch side and put it in at the top and bring it over to 5.5. And I'm going to slice it at 5.5. And I'm going to save that piece because that will make a card base. And then I'm going to cut this at 4 1/4 because that will give me exactly what I need to fit on the front of this card, because I want it to be exact size. So this piece that we need to emboss, not cut, is going to go into our embossing folder like this. Close it up, and I'm going to use my line to make sure I'm getting it nice and straight. You got this nice little line down here at the bottom that will help you line it up so that it's nice and straight. But I'm not getting everything on there that I want, so I need to bring it down just a hair. So I'm going to come down just a bit past that line. And that looks perfect. Yep, I think this is exactly what I want. So again, we need our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And let's open it up. Again, we only need our base plate and our specialty plate, number 1 and number 4, in our embossing folder. So I'm going to lay that on top, crank it through. And if you have difficulty, like not good strength in your arms and everything, this machine is a dream because it cranks through so easy. Very seldom do you have to force anything, and I love it for that. So here is our embossed piece. Oh, and we embossed a little piece of gold on there because I guess I had another little piece of that gold was hanging on. All right, so we're done with our embossing folder. Let's see what we are going to do now, because I love this card. I think it's so pretty. In fact, I love this card so much, I think I'm going to do a mass production, and this will probably be my Christmas card for the season. That's how much I love this. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn it and make sure we're getting this lined up. Look how beautiful that looks on that rich raspberry. Oh my goodness, I love it, I love it, I love it. Oh, so pretty. But our card's going to go like this, so we need to decide. I think I want it like this. Isn't that gorgeous? And what you want to do is you want to kind of mimic everything on here so that you're covering it just where the embossing's at. So when you put this piece down, and we're going to put this down with just regular glue, or you can use Stampin' Seal. I'm going to use liquid glue because y'all know me, I love my liquid glue. So I'm going to take, and just on this frame part, now if you're a messy gluer, I would say use some Stampin' Seal or tear and tape. But now I'm going to sit this down, trying to get this nice and even on here. And my main concern is making sure that all of this lines up with my embossed image, just like that. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, the next thing we need to do is we need to bring this piece out. And remember this little frame that went in the middle of our die cut piece? Here's our die cut, and this went in the middle like that. We're going to cut that out, but guess what we're going to cut it with? We are going to decide what part of this we want for our scene. And I think I want it right about there, but you want to make sure you get it nice and squared. And I'm going to use my little pieces that I had on there, and I think we just need a couple on here. I'm going to close my glue up so I don't end up with a clogged mess. And again, we need our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. This time we're die cutting, so we're going to need our number 1 plate, and we're going to need our adapter plate. We're going to need a cut plate, our piece, and then our cover plate, which is also another cut plate. But I never cut on my cover plate, and I never cover with my cut plate. Does that make sense? All right, so now I think, no, we still have one more thing to cut. We'll get to that in a minute because we're going to do some heat embossing. This card has just about everything from embossing to die cutting to, you know, just heat embossing. It's a little bit of everything. So there's our little piece, and I got everything falling off of my little tray over here. So we got those pieces done, and I'm just covered in ink, but that's okay. Oh, I got ink on that. See, that didn't dry. I used quite a bit of ink on there. So I'm going to grab my I used a alcohol wipe a while ago for when I was re-inking. Let's see if we can find a place on here that's clean enough that will allow me to clean that off of that plate. Now I can always grab another wipe, which I think I will. And I've had people to ask me about my alcohol wipes that I make myself. And I'll do another little short video, or I'll link the video where I made those under this video if I can find it. If I can't find it, I'll do another little quick video on I didn't know I needed to know that. But these alcohol wipes, look how well that cleans up. Not only does it clean that, let me show you this. These get dirty with paper pieces in it, and you can clean your cut plate. Look at that dirt that comes off. And I clean mine ever so often because it keeps the dirt from getting on your white cardstock when you run white cardstock through. And I clean both sides because I do flip this. So I just make sure I clean both sides. And see how dirty it is? You don't realize the paper, you know, just the color from the paper. And then after you finish, you'll just want to take a microfiber and just dry it. And there's a little free tip in the middle of the video. But you know, tips are always good. I love when I learn something different, and hopefully this is something that will help you out in your crafting room or studio or whatever you call it. I know the new term, a friend of mine, we were talking about that the other day. We used to call it a craft room. Now it's a craft studio, or your stamping studio. So you know, everybody has different ways that they do things. So anyway, we're going to glue this piece, and that looks so much darker. I think it's because I stamped it so many times, but that's okay. We're going to go with it. We are going to pop this up on dimensions because I want some dimension on this card. So I'm going to grab my dimensionals. No, not the minis. Here's my full-size ones. Sorry about that. I'm going to put my regular Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to put one on each corner and maybe two in the middle. I'm usually very generous with my Stampin' Dimensionals because I don't want my cards. The last thing you want to do is send somebody a card that falls apart. That would be so embarrassing. So I'm going to peel these all off. And then we're going to sit this right here in the middle, and you want to make sure you get it where you can see those lines around it so it looks like it's framed. Just like that. Then tap it down. Now I have a secret for putting these on to your card base. If you struggle with getting things on nice and straight, now this is going to cover the entire perimeter of your card, but if you want to get it on without having issues, I suggest tear and tape. And I'm going to show you why I say tear and tape. Tear and tape is real easy to put on. Just like this. You can tear it with your fingernail. You can go over top of it. It doesn't matter. It's very forgiving. And again, tear it. Oops. And see if it grabs your paper, it will tear it, but it's okay. Just keep going. Just like that. And like that. Now, the reason I say that this works so much better, if you take your tear and tape and just lift up, let's see, might need to use our bone folder and just get this adhered on here. You don't want to adhere too much. You don't want to knock away your embossing. So just right around the edge, just get it on there a little bit. And then we're going to lift and fold it down at an angle like that. Let me zoom y'all in a little bit. So just fold it back like that, and do that on all four sides. Lift it up and then just fold it back enough so you have a little tab sticking out. Just like that. Do it here, fold it back, and then do it down here and fold it back. Now what that's going to allow you to do is you're going to be able to lay this down on here, do this little number, tap it, make sure everything's nice and straight. Once you are satisfied, hold your card, take one of your strips and pull it and tack it down. Now you're pretty much free to do the rest of these. So now you can grab this one, pull it up. If you have any excess hanging over, you can trim it off. That one I didn't get it quite under, so you can just trim that excess glue off. Just like that. And then we got this one, and we're just going to pull it. And then we got this side, and we're going to pull it. Now your card is adhered to your base perfectly, and it's absolutely, I do have a hangover right there of glue, but I am going to trim that just ever so slightly. And I got that off, and it looks like I got a little hangover here. And if you get the hangover of glue, what you want to do is try not to get it so close to the edge that you have this, and I didn't pay attention. And a lot of times that's because I'm recording and I'm trying to make sure that I'm in frame. I'm trying to make sure that y'all are seeing what I'm doing. And so a lot going on here in my brain. All right, here's our other piece. Now this is our inside piece. Now we're going to need to cut this one down. But before we do that, let's grab a little scrap of white. And I am going to use a stamp. And this is the one that says Peace to You at Christmas. And I'm going to stamp it. Always be conscious of where you're stamping so that you make sure that your sentiment or your die, if you're die cutting, will go around it. So I'm going to stamp it right about there. And I'm going to use my Versamark ink because we are going to heat emboss this. I thought the gold would be beautiful on this. So I am going to ink. And then, always forget my powder tool, and that's not a good thing to do because you don't want specks of gold in your sentiment. You want just your sentiment. So this is our embossing buddy, so you want to use that because that will take out the static that causes the embossing powder to stick where you don't want it to, especially if you're like me and your hands are always dry. And I think any of us that handle paper end up having very dry hands, so we are constantly lotioning our hands. And if you touch your paper, you're going to get fingerprints on it. So I'm going to go ahead and use that embossing buddy. So now I've inked up with my Versamark, and I'm going to stamp right about here. And I'm going to give that ink time enough to transfer, and you won't be able to see this, I don't think. I can barely see it, but it is there. You will see it in just a minute because we're going to pull out our gold embossing powder. And Stampin' Up! Sells their embossing powders in sets of three colors to a pack. You have your basics and you have your metallics. Your metallics is gold, silver, and bronze. Your basics is white, black, and clear. So, and they are in the catalog. So let's put some embossing powder over that and then tap it off. And there you go. There is our, and you know what? I didn't zoom y'all back out. I apologize. So sorry. There we go. All right. So there we have our sentiment. So all we have to do now is heat emboss. So let's cover up. One thing you want to do is make sure your ink pad and your embossing powder is closed off before you bring out that heat gun. So I'm going to go ahead and, this is our heat tool. This is our Stampin' Up! Heat tool. It has two settings on it. You have a 1 and a 2. I'm going to put it on 2 for heat embossing. 1 would be if you need to dry some paper or ink or whatever, you would use it on that. For heat embossing, you definitely want it on 2. I'm going to let it heat up for about 20 or 30 seconds before I take it to my paper. And that just helps it get nice and warm so that when you bring it to your paper, it's ready to do the job. So I'm going to go underneath it first and just heat it from underneath, and then I'm going to come back on the top, and you will see the magic happen. All of a sudden, it starts turning from that dull brown look to a beautiful gold embossing. Once everything has turned to gold, you know you're done. It's that simple. A lot of people are very intimidated by heat embossing, but it is probably one of my most favorite techniques I could do. Now we're going to take our die and we're going to put it right over that sentiment where we want it. And I think right about there is good. Again, I'm going to use my little post-it pieces to hold this down. And we're going to run it through our, I think for this one I might just run it through my little one. We have the little mini emboss machine too. When you're doing small pieces that will fit through here, this is great, but this other embossing that I did would not work with this machine. So I always tell everybody, if you can only afford one, get the larger one, because it will not limit you to what you can do. But this is a nice little piece to have because it's small. It will fit on your desk. It's easy for little small sentiments. Now if you only die cut sentiments, this would be perfect for you. But I like being able to use everything. So if I could only get one, I would definitely just got the large one because I can do everything on it. So I'm going to peel this off and pop that out. And look how pretty. This embosses as well. I don't know if you can see the detail, but isn't that gorgeous? And we are going to bring this over, and I want this to pop up like it's part of it's in that snowbank and part of it's on our card. So I want a full dimensional here. So I'm going to grab my dimensions. What did I do with them? Keep wanting to grab the minis, and that's not what I want. I want my full size ones. Here they are. Alright, I need one to go over on this end, and you want it to go over as far as it can. I might do some mini ones down here on the bottom. Maybe there and here. And then we're going to put liquid glue across here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these backers off. And I'm going to take some liquid glue. And I'm just going to run a line of glue right across that top. And then I'm going to sit this down like so. And see how that fits on there beautifully like that. So now the only thing we got left to do is stamp our sentiment. So I have got that all loaded up. I think I'm going to go ahead and use this one since I have it loaded. Peace on earth, goodwill to all, Merry Christmas. I love that. So I'm going to grab that Rich Razzleberry again. And since this is a larger stamp, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to ink it from this side. Oh, and I got that really good and inky that time. Maybe a little bit too much. I'm going to be very gentle when I set this down because I've got ink around the edges that I don't want on my card base. I didn't cut this down yet. Let's go ahead and try it and then we'll cut it down, because I may have to re-ink this and redo it. So I'm not going to press. I'm just, just very, very, very easy, even texture. Very good. I didn't make a mess with that, and that makes me happy. So I'm going to get my little Stampin' Scrub here, and I'm going to clean that stamp because that stamp would be a mess. That would definitely be a mess. So you have a wet side and a dry side on this Stampin' Scrub, and I love, love, love my Stampin' Scrub. If you don't have one and you do a lot of stamping, oh my goodness, you will see the benefit of having it because it is wonderful. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stick my pen back in my glue, And I'm going to cut this down because I know I didn't cut it down a while ago, and it needs to be 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to bring it here, and it is, yeah, see, it's a little bit, so it's about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off of both sides. I'm going to split the difference so I don't have my card looking, you know what, I think I can take the 1/4 off of this side. It looks like I've stamped more over to that side. So for that reason, I'm just going to cut it down right there. I think that'll work. And then I'm going to take it off to the bottom. So I'm going to take it to 5 1/4. Yeah, that worked that time. Normally, if I had stamped evenly in the middle, I wouldn't have done that. I would have taken 1/8 off of each side. And if it had been centered in the middle, I would have took 1/8 off of the top and the bottom. But we didn't do that, so it worked out all the same. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this in. I'm just going to use liquid glue for my inside. You could use your tear and tape again with that technique I showed you, or you can use your glue or Stampin' Seal, whatever your preference of adhesive is. And then I'm going to line this up just like that and give it a good press. And there is our card. Is that not a beautiful card? I'm going to lay both of these here because I think they're equally beautiful. Just showing how it can look so much different depending on the color of cardstock that you choose. But I love the fact that whatever color paper you stamp on, that's what color your church is going to be. So you could play with this. You could use a light blue with a Night of Navy ink, you know, maybe balmy blue, and then everything would look blue. Just, I mean, the possibilities are endless to what you could do with this stamp set. And I'm not done because I've got some more ideas on how I can bring this to you. What about this as a shaker card? Sounds interesting, doesn't it? But stay tuned because we will have more videos coming. Thank you so much for being here. As I always say in every closing, let everything that you do and say bring glory to our Father in heaven. He is worthy. If you're interested in any of the products that you saw here today that I used, they're all available in my online store. The link to that is in the description below. The PDF tutorial will have all the measurements, the products I used, along with the order numbers, and that is also on my blog. So if you go check my blog, you'll be able to find the video, pictures, the PDF tutorial. It's all right there in one place. So check out my blog. If you haven't joined my Facebook group, go over and join that. The link for that will be below as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. God bless and keep you. Until we craft again, I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.